Welcome in, Jake West, joined by Caleb Tallman. This is the North Carolina High School Athletic Association bracket reveal show. Caleb, brackets have been out for what, an hour, maybe?
Yeah, and as we look right now, when you go look at the NCHSAA website, I think the brackets are now finalized because teams had until 1:30 to submit any request changes, and so it still shows preliminary brackets on the website, but basically that means they're probably finalized. If anything, I mean the biggest thing you have to say is, and you made me aware of it because I wasn't sure, is that Mountain Island Charter and Carver, based on their game last night, were both kicked out of the playoffs.
Yeah, they didn't play last night. I think they played 2 weeks ago, and they just
Gotcha.
made the decision to. I guess did they remove Carver? I know for sure they removed Mountain
Yeah,
Island Charter.
They removed both Carver and Mountain Island Charter, and that's why you see Robinsville got bumped up to 4. A team like Hayesville, that Carver was in front of them, and Mountain Island Charter was in front of them, went up 2 spots. So, I mean, lots of interesting things.
Yeah, just before we get into the games, let's announce what games are going to be played. Sticking with Hayesville be traveling to Swain. Hayesville got the 19 seed, and Swain. What did Swain get? 14.
Yep, Swain's 14, Hazel's 19.
So that'll be a nice rematch. Obviously, they played earlier in the regular season since they're in the same conference. What was the final score to that one?
It was a pretty lopsided Swain victory. The big thing you have to think about in that game, Swain won 42-14. But Jake McTaggart was still in his suspension at that point and played in the second half, but it was out of hand by the second half. And I know we're not going to get into predictions today, but since then, since that game, Hazel's trended in the right direction, beat Cherokee, who turned around and beat Swain last night. And Swain has struggled since that matchup, losing, was it 3 straight, I guess, to Murphy, Robinsville, and Cherokee. So definitely a really interesting rematch.
Yeah, for sure. And then Murphy is going to play host to Allegheny. Murphy got the 9 seed after their loss last night to Andrews. So Allegheny will have to travel to Murphy. Murphy did still get a home game even with the loss, but they did slip down to the 9 seed. And I tell you who was really helped out last night, obviously, was Andrews, as they hopped up to, what are they, 10? They get the 10 seed?
Yes.
And they'll play host to Bishop McGinnis. And Cherokee will play host to Cherryville, while Robinsville will host the 29 seed Winston-Salem Prep. And pretty much all of these Smoky Mountain Conference first round games are going to be cakewalks besides the Swain Hayesville game. I mean, Andrews should be able to get through Bishop McGinnis without any trouble. Bishop McGinnis team that is, hold on, I'm pulling up the record here. 2-7 Bishop McGinnis team, 1-5 in conference. One of them is against Winston-Salem Prep, but just for just comparison, they lost to Mountain Island Charter, who was going to be Mountain Island Charter was going to be ranked around the same as going to be seated around the same as Andrews, so they're around the same caliber team. Bishop McGinnis lost to Mountain Island Charter 47-0 earlier in the year, so I don't think Andrews is going to have much of a problem there, coming away with a victory. And then as Murphy plays host to Allegheny, Allegheny is 2-7. And they lost their last game of the season last night to Mount Airy 49-0. Now, I'm not saying Mount Airy and Murphy are the same caliber team, but Allegheny also lost to Starmount 35-22. So, I mean, just when the playoffs are expanded back to what they were and not like they were in the spring season, I mean, these first round games are not going to be much pumpkin, but
No, and if you're the Bulldogs, it's great for you because you need a get-right game. And if you can get right next week, maybe you can make a run in the playoffs.
Yeah, and Robinsville, we did the Robinsville Winston-Salem Prep game last year in the playoffs, but let me tell you, this is a lot different Winston-Salem Prep team than the team was than the Phoenix were last year in the spring playoffs.
Winston-Salem Prep had several D1 recruits, including a Clemson commit that graduated. And when they graduated, the rest of the team went back to, I guess, maybe their home schools or a different charter or whatever it may be.
Yeah.
But yeah, and you and I talked about it, Jake, before we put up the full bracket just to show people. Obviously, there's changes after the RPI because 2 teams were removed. But RPI is not available. Go ahead, go to the NCHSAA website. And this is a picture I took of my computer screen. This is what you get. Access denied because we're the NCHSAA and we don't want people to see what we've done after we've done it, right? I mean, more or less.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of sketchy that they do that, but nonetheless, they did do a good job of getting the brackets out in a timely manner today.
Yeah, that never happens. It happened today, though, so we appreciate it. That way, me and you aren't doing our bracket reveal at 11 p.m. But and then let's go ahead and show the people real quick. Last thing before we put the full bracket up. Here is the RPI as of this morning before it was taken down. So you see some teams. Mountain Island Charter was at 5, and Robinsville was at 7. So I really, and Starmount was ahead of them. So that's how you see Robinsville. Really, Robinsville should have jumped from 7 to 5, not from 7 to 4. But it is what it is, right? I mean, that's good for Robinsville because now that's an extra round hosting. I think that's a 3rd round host if all favorited teams win. And just going down, looking through it, obviously some of these teams all got bumped up. Hayesville was 21, so that one makes more sense because Carver and Mountain Island were both ahead of Hayesville. You can see Carver there at 18, and that's how Hayesville moved up to 19. That's how Swain was at 15, and Mountain Island Charter getting tossed moved them up to 14. So most of it makes sense. There's a couple of weird spots in there. And then obviously if 2 teams getting kicked out, I think that meant every single team left eligible made the playoffs, like Rosman and Union Academy, South Davidson, Winston-Salem Prep. They all made the playoffs because of that. So even Highland Tech, who number 30 in this. But if you're ready, Jake, we'll go ahead and put up the bracket.
Yeah, go ahead and throw out the bracket. One thing I want to touch on is that we said all the games might be cakewalks for Smoky Mountain Conference teams, aside from the 2 teams that are playing each other. But Cherryville and Cherokee is another game you want to keep your eye on because it really depends on what Cherokee team shows up and what Cherryville team shows up. Cherryville on October 15th played Thomas Jefferson and lost by a score of 20-12. And then they played Burns and lost 47-0, and then beat Bessemer City 23-6 to end the year. So that game against Thomas Jefferson, I mean, that's an 8-point loss that they had there. And Thomas Jefferson, I'm not sure what they got seeded. Looks like they got the 5th seed in the final bracket. So I mean, it's a pretty good loss there if there is such a thing as a good loss. So we'll see which team shows up, and if the Cherokee team shows that dog walked Swain last night shows up, I mean, Cherokee could be a tough out in the playoffs.
Well, yeah, I mean, and you look at it, what's really interesting, Cherokee beat Robinsville, Jake. That's the potential 2nd round matchup.
Yeah, exactly. Let's talk about some of the 2nd round matchups, Caleb. Any other ones?
Murphy at Mountain Heritage, that would be a ball game right there.
Yeah, I agree.
Then you know that Cherokee Robinsville game. The other thing that I always just because when you head over to NC Preps or some of the other stuff we looked at, we always throw some love Mitchell's way. We kind of have adopted them at times this year as our how do you say, our 7th mountain team in our conference, because Mitchell fans and Smoky Mountain Conference fans go back and forth pretty well. And Mitchell, most years, don't come hollering at me, Mitchell fans, but most year Mitchell has been knocked out of playoffs by a Smoky Mountain Conference team. And Mitchell, if you win that 1st round matchup with South Davidson, which you should win easy, you're going to get a Smoky Mountain Conference team, either Swain or Hayesville. So that's an interesting matchup. And then Andrews, I really like the way Andrews' bracket has worked out for them. I really think that they have a chance to go to the third round because I think Starmount's not as good as people think they are. They played in a conference with some really good teams, but when you see those really good teams, Starmount has lost to them. They're only 6-4. That's not a world beater thing. When they've played good schools, they've gotten walked. When they played East Surrey, they got beat 37-0. When they played Southwestern Randolph, 42-30, 43-0 by Mount Airy. I mean, here's my theory, Jake, is if you're a good football team, yeah, you lose to Mount Airy. You lose to East Surrey, but you don't get a 0 spot hung on you twice by good teams.
Yeah, it's hard to get shut out, especially in a game that is that far away. Pull the bracket back up and let's look at some more of the pull the slider off the bottom there while the bracket's up so we can see the.
Yeah, it's Mount Airy and Union Academy at the bottom.
Yeah, so that is the only thing that's bad about Andrew's side down there is they're going to run into the buzzsaw that is Mount Airy or has been thus far. I think Murphy actually got a pretty favorable bracket up there at the top. I mean, second round Mount Heritage, you get past Mount Heritage, then you play Eastern Randolph. You mentioned the Mount Heritage Murphy game should be a good one, and it should be, but Mount Heritage a long ways away from the 2A state runner-ups that they were last year.
Yeah. And then I was just going to point out just what's interesting. If you go over to the east side of the bracket, Jake, there's 3 teams that have buys, but you got Tarboro there at the top. And tell me if I'm wrong. Did Murphy play Northwest Pinetown in the state championship last year or the year before?
Northside Pinetown last year. Yeah, there's actually 4 teams with a bye in the east side.
4. Okay. Yeah, I missed Northampton. That's my bad. But yeah, so apparently Northside Pinetown's still pretty strong. So, I mean, I'd honestly could really see a 1-2 matchup there in the East in the state semifinal. But, I mean, the west side of this bracket, I look at, I mean, there's probably 4 or 5 teams that I legitimately think have a chance to represent this state, represent the West in the state championship. I mean,
yeah, I agree. There's teams also that we don't cover, like Thomasville, and obviously you mentioned Mitchell, but Eastern Randolph, teams like that. I mean, with the way the conference has been and the way that the SMC has beaten each other up so far this year, you could see it come up 3rd, 4th round and there not be a Smoky Mountain Conference team there like there has been in the past. Obviously, we hope that doesn't happen, but I mean, these guys have hounded on each other all year.
Yeah, and I mean, I think one of the things you see too is that it's just changed. You know, I may get 1 or 2 of these wrongs, but I'm pretty sure Eastern Randolph dropped down from 2A to 1A this year. Mountain Heritage 2A to 1A this year. Drawn 2A to 1A this year. Was Mount Airy? No, Mount Airy was 1A last year. But I mean, you got a bunch of bigger schools that in the reshuffling have come down now. Thomasville, that's the other one I was thinking of. Thomasville came down. They used to be a traditional power back when they were in 1A years ago. And I mean, and we see that all the time, Jake. Teams go from 2A to 1A or 3A to 2A or vice versa and move up and either struggle or get a lot better. I mean, not that I don't think they wouldn't be a playoff team like they're going to be over in Georgia, but when did we see the huge turnaround with Fannin County football as, you know, a perennial 2A power now is when they moved down from 3A to 2A. Franklin had a really good run when they were a 2A under Brooks. And now they're back at 3A. And look what happened when they got into the conference play and had to play a bunch of other 3A schools. I think we've seen that over the years.
Yeah, and you got to remember, there's no one little A, one big A this year. It's all everybody's together. I mean, all the 1A schools are right there together. So it's definitely going to be tougher for a Smoky Mountain Conference team to make a run. But I think if anybody can do it, the team that's peaking at the right time right now is definitely Robinsville. And they've got talk about a cakewalk in the first round.
I mean, honestly, I think there's 3 cakewalks in the first round of the Smoky Mountain Conference. I really do.
Yeah, I mean that's. I really wish it was like last year where they shortened the conference teams down.
Yeah, because I mean, and that would hurt me a little bit as a Hayesville guy because that means Hayesville wouldn't have made the playoffs. But over in Georgia, making the playoffs is a badge of honor. There's some schools that in their gym or on their field have banners of the years they've made the playoffs because making the playoffs is not easy.
Yeah.
North Carolina, 32 out of 32 teams. Every single team that didn't get kicked out of the playoffs made it and won a football.
Yeah. Exactly.
But what I will say as we wrap up, Jake, is at the end of the day, doesn't matter how many rounds of playoffs you have, you win and advance or you lose and you're done. So
yeah,
you're going to get to your ultimate champion one way or the other.
Very true. The only thing that concerns me about Robinsville, and this definitely will bode well for Hayesville, is Robinsville and Swain have played 3 games in 7 days, and then they're going to play another one, start their playoff run on Friday. So Hayesville's going to catch a tired Swain team, so that could help them. But also Robinsville, it's a good thing they do have this bad Winston-Salem prep team in the first round, because hopefully they can get in there, punch a bunch of scores in early, and then rest their guys for the 3 more quarters.
Yeah. And we'll get up with all you watching. We'll moving forward this week. We've got to apply with the state and figure out whether we're doing 0, 1, 2, or 3 games this week. We're going to try and get some coverage for y'all next Friday night on FYNTV.com. And if we're unable to, all our reporters will be all around the conference, getting delayed video and all kinds of reports out throughout the week. It's a big time, Jake. It's playoff time.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. Anything else you want to add before we end the show here?
Just as always, the brackets are out now. So I'm sure there's a lot of coaches that are already hard at the film work. So it's going to be interesting. And there are several good first round matchups around the state, just not that many in our conference other than the Hayesville Swain game.
Yeah, I agree. We'll go back and we'll do some research of our own, and we may pop back on here later if anything changes.
Yeah, of course. If we get any bracket changes, unless the brackets are official, we'll obviously have to touch on that. But I think most years you don't see the preliminary brackets change. Sometimes maybe one change.
Yeah,
so we'll see.
All right, that'll do it. We'll go see what else we can conjure up. Thanks, Caleb.